So we're going to address this custom shape today as we tension this face. We'll be using a couple of different clips based on the length and radius of these curves. We've got outside corners to address, inside corners to address, an outside radius and an inside radius. We're using the 2107 and the plastic clip to get everything aligned. Once we have the alignment of the frame and the fabric, then we can start addressing where we're going to make the initial cuts to begin the tensioning process. I'll get the face, which has multiple measurements already printed on there. We suggest that you contact SignComp customer service. They will give you details to each different extrusion. There are multiple extrusions that SignComp offers for these face tensionings, but you'll notice right away there's a red and a blue line. Those measurements are the outside, from measuring from the frame out to the blue cut line. Then we measure back in 1.5 inches, and that's where we'll place the clips for the black plastic clip. Our initial step will be to align this fabric so that from left to right, top to bottom, we have these lines 3.5 inches from the edge of the frame to this outside blue line. We'll do that by taking a series of clamps just to get us started. We measure from the edge of the frame. At this point, it's really just a couple of times going around. We're looking for 3.5 inches at this point from the outside cut line, 3.5 inches inside to the frame edge. So once we have that set, we're just going to put in a couple of initial clamps. These are just simple clamps that you get at any hardware store. This is just going to hold us as we work ourselves around this frame and get that 3.5 inches, because as we set that, we don't want to make these cuts if we're not aligned with that corner. So by getting from top to bottom 3.5 inches or very close at this stage, then we can address left and right and adjust these clamps. If you have these set, and then we can pull the majority of the tension, get these sags, get these initial wrinkles out of the face before we even start the process, is very helpful as you're tensioning through. So here, as I said, I'm at 4.5 inches. This whole face needs to shift this way. That's why we don't crank these down. We're not trying to damage the vinyl. We're just trying to get this initially set. This letter is a 3.5, or a small P as I'm setting this 3.5 inches. But you'll see there are different size faces, different shapes. We just want to get this aligned. So now that we have some of our initial clamps around the perimeter, you'll notice it's not perfectly flat at this point. When you get your face material from your printer, your graphic shop, you will have this excess material. Once you're comfortable that you've got within your 3.5 inches from the edge of your frame to the outside, this will adjust as we go, as we place the clips, but the rest of this is burden material at this point. Now that we're comfortable that we've got it close, we can trim off some of this excess. We can get back to the balance of this, cutting it down its final stage later on. But having this initial material is useful. It helps you pull for tension, but we've got more than enough, and it kind of hampers putting on your clips or your clamps. So at this point, I can pull a little adjustment into here. You'll have to stay away from this inside corner, because as I pull the face, we'll create wrinkles. So you just tug on it until you get far enough away. You're just looking for a flat face, making sure you have enough material as you set these clamps. This is really just an alignment stage. It isn't necessary that you do this, but it certainly is helpful. Gives you the confidence that you have more than enough material as you begin your tensioning process. Once we have these clamps in place, now you can see that we've got enough material. Our 3.5 inch out, our red clip line is still exposed. What we're going to address is this radius right here, this top portion of this P. Once we have this aligned with a few clips, we'll replace the clamps with clips at these points. Then we'll go into where we're going to have to cut a relief joint. What we don't want are these legs to shift one direction or another where we won't have enough fabric. So once we get these areas established and replacing them with the black plastic clip and mandrel, what we want to point out to you that each of the stages there will be additional paperwork that you can get from SignComp that will show you basically the outline, your offset to your cut line, your measurement back in for your clip line. If you have your clips positioned very close to the perfect solution, a lot of the wrinkles and concerns you'll have at a later date as you move down. The clip is a two-part clip. There's the clip itself and a mandrel. Smooth side up, we're going to the inside of the red line and we'll fold the fabric over and then attach the clip. Again, there is a detail of this that's available from SignComp. We'll initially set that clip in. It'll pull tension. We'll have to adjust these clips, but what we're trying to do is eliminate these clamps right now with these black clips. So I'll go around the perimeter at these different locations, remove these clips, and get everything back into alignment. Smooth side up, setting it at our cut line that we pre-printed when we established the face. Pulling a little tension. You'll notice that I'm not pushing down on the fabric because what I want to do is pull the tension across the face and then initially set the clip into the channel. We've replaced the majority of these clamps. Now what we're going to do for the next step is start to address this radius. The end portion down there is secure. I have my 3.5 inches up here. I'm comfortable. I have the 3.5 inches at the top. Now we want to just do a layout. With the extrusion, you're going to stay about 1.5 inches up to a clip, which is 3 inches away to start your layout. I just lay the clips out. The clips, I set a clip in, set a secondary clip. Now we have our proper spacing. Set a clip in. And these don't have to be perfect. We're going around a radius. What we're trying to do is get about 3 inches away as we come around our radius. By setting this, it allows you that if required, you can now cut the face material and feel confident that you have proper spacing. So I can mark out these areas with a Sharpie out here at the cut area, and then when I cut the fabric, it'll isolate each one of these clips so I can pull tension as we go around. For the initial tensioning, as we come around the radius, we cut these relief flaps, staying a good 1/2 inch to 1 inch away. It's kind of feel, once you get comfortable, you get a little closer, but stay a 1/2 inch away from your frame material. You will notice that I'm going just every other clip at this point. The reason is I'm just pulling tension, trying to get this flat. The inside of this radius for our last phase of this tensioning is centered inside this frame, so we're very comfortable now to continue to address. I can't put clips all the way up to the corner until I address this inside cut, which I will cut on a diagonal right towards this corner, which will relieve this big flap and also allow this to relax on the outside edge. But once we get the radius square, we know that the rest of the face is not going to adjust inside or outside that frame. That's the beauty of the SignComp clip, is that it's an adjustable system, and that once we get down to the final phase, pulling additional tension will take out some of the waves, some of the wrinkles, and adjust the face. Once we get the radius set, that I know that it's not going to draw in or outside of the frame, then we can start down the leg, the straight lengths of this. To make it easier, I just isolated the first clip up here at the edge to get this corner tight and flat. You always want to remember that 2 pieces of extrusion coming from SignComp, whether you cut them or SignComp delivers them in a kit, is that these will be very sharp. Be sure you round these corners off. It allows the fabric to move, but it also, the point of that extrusion being very sharp, will penetrate, rip your fabric, but also hold you back from being able to adjust your clips as you go. So then I just took a length of this, attached the clips on center as required at the clip line, and now we can just insert all of these clips into the channel and complete the back side of this radius. But by isolating this, and I did lay the clips out knowing that I'd have the proper amount of clips in this run, now we can just set all the clips into the channel before we go back and put some initial tension. Just remember at this, I keep saying the word initial because that's what this is. We're just getting the clips inside, the teeth on the clips against the teeth on the extrusion, and just getting it tight at this point. I'm not taking the SignComp tensioning tool and driving these home and creating wrinkles. At this point, we want the SignComp clip to relax in that frame so it allows adjustment. Not only will the clip move in the frame, teeth on teeth, teeth to the frame, teeth to the clip, but also the vinyl inside the mandrel will adjust. Once you have that under tension, that clip is locked. We are now to our engineered wind loads, and that face will not move. So you want to keep it loose as you go, and then we'll just go back and slightly adjust and insert the balance of these clips to get that radius correct. So we isolated that first initial leg. You'll see there are some wrinkles, but we'll adjust that when we get the rest of the clips in. What I want to address now is this bottom end of this leg, but this outside corner. Now that we're confident that we're square inside this frame, we can make this initial cut at the corner. Your clip line and your cut line are drawn, and you're headed for this, but don't go within an inch. All it's going to do is isolate this flap and this flap. We'll take this next corner on once we start to tension here. But this first cut, we're just going to take it in at a diagonal, get within an inch of the frame. Now when this face folds in, there is extra material. This extra material can now be relief cut because you do not need that quadrant. We're folding inside the frame at an outside corner. So both of these, and you're just kind of guessing at this point of how much material you'll need. You can adjust that once you get the clips into place. But when the clip goes on and goes into that channel, all this extra balance of material is just a burden, kind of gets in the way of tensioning, so you can relief that corner. And usually at a 45 at the corner, you can relief that cut. So you'll remember on this outside corner, we cut in at a diagonal right to where the two pieces of extrusion come together. We cut out a relief piece on either side. There's also a method where we come into that same outside corner, that once I cut in here diagonally, that we will have this extra material. If you consider that extra material can be tucked inside the flap, but also if you twist that vinyl, it'll pull tension across that face and then just stuff, literally, this extra material inside the room that's provided in between clips inside that channel. You do not have to cut the face material out. It's really just to relieve the burden. You can cut the corner and take this extra material, tuck it into this side and tuck it into this side, and it will create tension in the face. Okay, now that we have the initial clips set on this long leg, I just put a couple clips into the bottom just to keep this flat from top to bottom. Where we're addressing now is this inside corner of the frame. You can see as I pull tension here that the face flattens out. We have still a lot of tensioning to do on either side, but right now we're trying to isolate this leg at the bottom of the radius and this leg the bottom of the peak. Find the inside of your frame. You want to head right up that diagonal. Again, you can stay back at your initial cut so that as we pull tension here, we don't pull that cut into the face and then create a light leak. You want to stay back, but sooner or later, in between these clips, once we start setting all of the clips, because I went around and did every other one, there's this buckle that's created. That buckle can be pushed back in, but really all it requires is that we just trim the face up a little tighter within that 1/2 inch on either side, and that will release that tension and create the flat appearance that you're looking for. So I'm always staying back about a little more than a 1/2 inch. That isolates this flap. We can tension either side, and then we can pull the final tension into this radius. But this wrinkle right here will have to be addressed as we cut a little closer and a little closer. Just take your time, be slow. You want to make sure that your adjustment does not, when we pull these clips into tension, these into tension, that this cut does not protrude inside this frame. Now that all the clips are attached on this side, we still have the adjustment in the clips. Keeping my hand above the frame, we just set the clip inside the channel, just getting the teeth to engage with the frame. You don't want to over tension at this stage, just getting them aligned. Here is the corner that we're addressing, is that this wrinkle, we don't want to push further into the frame. We want to pull it out of the frame and across this frame and get this flat. And this dimple will release as we adjust tension and tension. But this is the last flap we have to adjust. All the clips will be in place. Then we'll go around and get these a little tighter, get the buckle out of this, and then address straightening out this last leg. Now that we have the initial clips around the edge, and again, the initial setting of these clips is what we're addressing, is that now we want to get these flat. Keeping in mind throughout the process that if we over tension here, we could create a line off of this. This tension load is on an XY axis, and we now have a angle internal. So we're going to have to adjust the pressure to release this dimple. Once we get it flat, sometimes you have to loosen the clip. How we loosen the clip is by taking a common flathead screwdriver. Flat-headed screwdriver. There is a slot on the back side of the clip. When you set the flathead inside and twist it, it releases the teeth from the frame. So we can loosen the clip by insetting it into the slot provision and twisting it, and the clip will now loosen. That's a great benefit because at this point then I can slide the clip closer or away so that I can help release the tension here. We could go ahead and tension the rest of this face, but here's where we want to address. Get this very close. Now the cover will take up an awful lot of this once we put it on, but we want to get it as clear an image as we possibly can by releasing that dimple. Now I just have to go around using the tension tool. So what we're going to do is just work our way around the perimeter of the frame, inserting inside the frame for leverage. We push down in. Again, not over tensioning. Always keep an eye up. Keep your hands off the face. You don't want to create a depression. You're trying to pull tension from this corner to this corner. By insetting that last clip, we lost that pucker in that corner. So we don't, if I create more tension here, it'll create itself again. It'll just adjust left or right. So we just go around and make sure that the clips are tight. I always keep an eye on the edge. If that edge is sharp, then your cover will fit very clean. So you're trying to get the puckers out of here. You can refer to them as puckers or bubbles. I just go around and make sure we're tight. Looking across the frame, hoping not to create wrinkles on the opposite side. Always cut away from the face so that you don't make a mistake and cut into the face, leaving at least that 1/2 inch on either side. That now gives us the ability to adjust this clip into that channel, creating that smooth, clean line. Again, we have a little wrinkle here that can be adjusted by, you have a flat clip and a radius, by pulling the clip out next to it. And again, cutting it closer to the frame, edge away, gives you just a little more relaxation. And again, we pull the clip, see how flat that is to the edge, keeping your hand on the outside, inset the clip, it'll hold the tension. And then it's rinse and repeat as we go around. Sometimes you have to adjust the clip as you go. Just remember, smooth side up, twist the vinyl up, attach the clip, hand on the outside of the frame, and inset the clip. and we'll just continue that process. We're creating a little bit of a void here. We've got some extra material, but we'll relax that into this radius where we still have some adjustment up here. So now that we have the majority of the clips in, we're down to the last few. As you can see, we're under full tension. We're not over tension. We're not creating any wrinkle issues. We just want to roll the clip up, inset it into the channel. You'll notice that I have extra material here. At this point, you can take your razor knife and go around and trim to the edge of the frame and get rid of all these extra flaps, because what that'll do is impede how the cover goes on. Now that we have the tension set on the outside perimeter of this frame, we want to address this inside radius. So in other words, cut out this hollow. It's the same with any shape that has a hollow on the inside. You want to tension the perimeter of the face. Do not cut this out in advance, or you have to chase this like a noodle all the way around and pull all the wrinkles. By tensioning across from edge to edge, we are now under tension here. We literally could cut out this release and this would stay, except it would curl in the tension. So there really isn't a lot of tension load inside this hollow that we're creating. But what we do have to do is address that it's a much tighter radius. So this 3-inch black plastic clip that we used around the perimeter, we can't set that into the frame at this tight radius. We can get it in certain spots. We could put it in here, or at this time we will switch to the 1-inch metal clip. This metal clip attaches a little different. We take the flat side up of your face material, and inside that jaw, those teeth, we set the clip inside. You want to be sure that you bottom out in that frame, and then we're literally going to crimp this around. The teeth on here will engage with the channel on here, and we are going to crimp this using a tool. There's a tool available. You can use a pair of pliers, but honestly, this gives you the tension that you require. Set the clip inside. It will engage in a little wire. You set it inside. Make sure your vinyl is all the way to the back of the throat, and then when you close it, you'll feel it pop and tighten onto your vinyl. This is then set inside the frame by coming in, rolling it forward, and setting it back. Now the teeth on the back side of that clip are going to engage, and we're right back to the same tension load that we do before. The deeper you push this in, the tighter that face material will become. Laying this out, seeing that this is a tight radius, I want to lay my clips out. If I put a clip directly in the center, then I'm distributing that tension load out in every direction. By offsetting it just a little bit, in my head I'm thinking I'm going to cut 2-inch strips, but here's where the frame is. The frame is way back here. So this is my clip line. This is my cut line. We're going to cut strips coming back, but we don't want to start too quickly. So we'll just cut a release to this by using an X-Acto. Finding the center of the frame. Remember, the frame is way out here. We can't see that frame line, so this is the center. Once we cut a relief inside this vinyl, you can see that we're not creating or releasing any of the tension. I just cut a hole, and yet we're still under tension load. That's the significance of using the SignComp tensioning system, is that as we move and adjust, these clips will relax into that joint. Now it's just finding where is that offset of 2 1/4 inches so that I can set this clip into place. And that just takes a little bit of layout. We'll just proceed around the radius, trying to keep these clips at this point. They're going to be closer in the radius, and as we get further down, we'll spread the clips out to about 2 inches. But here we're trying to create this tension load in here without causing any puckers or concerns as we're pulling in. Always cut away from your face just to be secure that you're not causing any issues. And you'll notice that we're now starting to create a triangle, and these will get tighter and tighter. The entire clip may not be attached to it, but as we address this back further, and then cut them off and continue the process around the radius. So we're just coming around the radius, really not putting anything under tension, just getting the clips into the channel, rolling them forward, just hand setting them in, because there is no tension here. We're just trying to make it flat, crisp appearance so that when we inset the cover. So we came around the radius by insetting each clip just by measuring out the 2 1/4 inches and then cutting it off. So each one of these as we came around, and again we're just putting them in finger tight. We can go back and tighten this up once we address the bottom. Now the bottom's the flat part. Here we didn't have any wrinkles, so that's the reason for starting up here, working your way down to the easiest portion. Now when I say the easiest portion, we have the edge of our frame on a skew in this P, and I need to set a clip here, and I also need to set a clip here, which means I need 2 1/4 inches going in each direction. By cutting it on a diagonal, I'm not going to have enough material here. But here we're just going to demonstrate step by step how we go ahead. You cut it on the angle, whatever material you have left will attach a duct tape flap to it. So finding my corner, again staying back just enough, trying to create room for one more clip. I want 2 1/4 inches here, and again that leaves me shy. I only have barely 2 inches. By taking a piece of duct tape and attaching it to the underside. You want to be careful that you don't put the duct tape inside the frame, or when you light it, you will have duct tape in this area causing a shadowing concern. So by folding it back over onto itself, again, don't go inside the face, but by folding it over on itself, I've now created an extended flap for this. You just want to work it in. Make sure you're comfortable with that. It's connected on both sides. Now measure out your 2 1/4 from here and cut this, and you've created an independent flap for this line. We will duplicate that process going this direction, coming out the distance of the clip and attaching another flap. Then we'll have 2 independent flaps, one going this direction, one coming back on this flat side. Again, make sure you don't go inside your frame, stay back. You do not want to cause a shadowing concern once you light this up and have to remove these clips. Folding it back over on itself, securing it on top and bottom of the vinyl so you have enough material. Now measure back from the edge of your frame the 2 1/4 that's required. And we can cut this off and have an independent flap going this direction and have an independent flap going this direction. Bringing tension into both corners at this point, giving you that sharp edge. Before I extend up the rest of this length, I have set the clip in on either corner with that duct tape extension. Once I set the clip in, I just take a screwdriver and tap tension till this surface is flat. Again, we're not under tension load in this inside radius, and just making sure that that is flat. If this corner is flat and secure, then we can move across to our last corner, duplicating that process. Now that we have all the clips, the aluminum 1-inch clips inset inside the channel, we're just going to go around and address the edge. If you see a little bubble, all you have to do is set your flathead screwdriver on the clip and just give it a touch. Don't no required tool at this point. Just touch them back in. You're not trying to over tension it at this point. You're just trying to address that flat edge so that your cover will fit better. Just tap them in. Typically, if they move, you need to address that, but commonly it's just tapping them in. You want your corners square. You don't want to pull any tension. You want to over tension and cause wrinkles across. But now we've addressed a flat face in the tensioning system.